shaman and an award-winning author, and I write about relationship dynamics. And what that covers is pretty much everything, because our lives are made up of thousands upon thousands of small relationships that we have with ourselves, with others, with our environment, our habitat, our culture, our dinner. So I'm here today to talk to you about listening. Listening is a very important part of being heard. When you actually listen, you must be relaxed. You need to be relaxed in order to actually listen to someone, to hear what they're saying. We listen on many different levels. We listen psychically, telepathically, emotionally, through our heart, through our mind, through our vibration. If we are sitting next to somebody, we are reading them, feeling them on all levels. And most of those levels are energetic long before we ever actually hear the words that someone says. And the truth is, we're built that way because so often we don't know how to communicate what it is we're truly feeling or what we really, really mean. So often our words can be deceiving because how we really feel about something and then what we're saying about it are two different things. There's a whole section on dating. That right there, that's dating. You first learn to communicate with someone by feeling them, feeling their vibe, picking up on the unspoken elements of their character, of their intention or desire. So learning to better understand what it takes to listen will also give you a deeper insight in what it takes to have a conversation and actually be heard. So that's what we're talking about today. So get your questions ready, because this is a big one. It may not seem like a big one to everybody, but it literally is the foundation of everything that's going on in your life right now. If you take it back, everything that's happening in your life is based on a communication that you've had with somebody, or a communication that you've received that maybe you understood, or maybe you didn't. Maybe you saw what they meant or heard what they meant, but didn't understand what they meant. So I just want to put that out there. Of course, I always talk about my book, Conquer Your Karmic Relationships, Heal Spiritual Trauma to Open Your Heart and Restore Your Soul. And one of the things that I talk about in the book as it pertains to listening, and I'm jumping ahead and then I'm going to come back. The Slayer's Path. Surrender to what is the only control you have. When we talk about surrendering to what is, we are speaking of current physical world facts. Spiritually speaking, all dimensions of energy are the illusions we create and perceive, good, bad, or neutral, that support us in our human expression. Until we accept what's happening in the physical, we cannot make any change to it. So while we receive information from all spiritual dimensions, it is surrendering to the truth of the real world that is paramount. Once you've surrendered to accepting things as they are, you can receive the spiritual information on how to change what no longer serves you, whether it's working through fear, addressing the truth, or innovating it in some other way. This doesn't mean that you can change others and their beliefs. Ding, 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 ding. Highlight that. I'll read it again. This doesn't mean you can change others and their beliefs. But You can find ways of stating your case with a method that promotes listening. There are methods that actually promote listening. And if all else fails, you can move away from the situation altogether. Either way, surrender is the only path forward when you're up against a wall. So, when people have some very basic emotional needs. I'm not talking about your basic, food and procreation needs. I'm talking about your emotional needs, your need to be heard, to be understood, to communicate, to love, and have your love received, be able to give love. Those are some very important needs for all human beings. And listening is one of the ways that you can show your love, that you can love another person. When we fully listen, when we take a deep breath and relax and center ourselves and look at the person and then listen. If you will take in fully what someone has to say and then leave a pause, leave some space in between your response. Leaving that space of silence before you respond allows for a deeper level of comprehension. Because oftentimes, if you don't see somebody every day or you don't know them well, you don't know what they mean by the vocabulary that they use. And right now, culturally, we have many definitions for words that we use to communicate certain ideas. And even if you don't know the word someone has used, if you will take in fully what they're saying and allow yourself to relax and hear it, and then give yourself the space to comprehend what they've said, you're going to have a deeper understanding and get it the first time around. That goes the same for if you want to be heard by someone. If you're telling someone something and you really want them to understand what it is you're telling them, tell them that what you're going to tell them comes in stages. I want to start here and tell you this story, and then I'm going to back up and go over here. But allow for the opportunity that when you've said, hey, I want to tell you something, I want to tell you a story about X. And then you give them the opportunity to take that in without inundating them with more story or filler. Ahs, being able to master your ability to not speak until there's really something to say is a real self-mastery coup. It's a real gold ring to grab for sure. Because most of the time, people have a need to fill empty space. If there's an empty space in there, they're going to fill it with, so I was telling this guy, I said, blah, 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 blah. Well, and, and the weather, and, and, I. And the more you have a conversation filled with those I, the more you're going to lose your audience, whether it's a friend, whether it's a colleague, or whether it's a beloved or someone that has a deep meaning for you in your life. You want to respect your words enough to give them the space to understand them, to receive them fully for not just what the words might mean to them, but what they actually mean to you. And then you want to give somebody the space after the fact to ask you questions. Well, do you mean this? Or do you mean this? And if you mean this, well, this is how I hear that. This is what that means to me. While we're sharing, this is what that means to me. So those got another, these are my reading glasses in case I needed them, but so far I haven't. So those are a few things that you need in order to listen. The last thing that I really want to talk about too regarding listening and hearing is in conflict resolution. People overtalk things because they don't want to actually feel the emotions that are behind the words. So they overtalk. And oftentimes people, if they have been, they haven't been supported in their ability to communicate or the willingness to hear their communications by the people that surround them, they struggle. They really do struggle with saying what they mean and being at peace with having it truly heard. So you have an opportunity there are like 10 different things going on. I started one place and I don't think I'm going to get there that way. So I think I'm going to have to start over and get there another way. People talk instead of feel. And that's the most important thing to know. If you have someone who overtalks and overtalks and overtalks, and you stop listening to them because they overtalk, because what they're saying is not anything that's really fulfilling, because they're not saying what it is that they mean. You, in recognizing that, have an unspoken obligation to say, hey, when we talk, you talk so fast that I don't really hear what you're saying. And I think half the time, what you're saying doesn't really connect at all to what I think you mean. What do you mean? Take your time. Take a deep breath. Focus. Don't worry. If you feel something, that's okay too. Take a minute to feel it. If it makes you sad, get sad. If you want to cry, let a tear out. If you get angry, scream for a minute. But take the opportunity to really acknowledge what someone is sharing with you and then what they're not sharing with you. If you will do that, if you'll do that with yourself by really listening to what your true needs are and finding ways to begin to communicate them so that others can hear you, and then really starting that process by listening fully with everything that you have, listen, be present to what somebody is saying and then what they mean by what it is that they're saying. We can create a common ground for all of us in this profoundly transformative period of time that we are all living in. So I think I got there. That's where I wanted to go, and it took me a minute, but I got there. Thanks for listening. And if there are no questions, I'm really glad that you stopped by. I do want to give you a couple of announcements. Starting between February 1st and February 15th, I will be announcing it on a Friday afternoon. After Chatcast, every Friday afternoon, I'm going to be doing a special membership-only 75-minute talk and Q&A so that I can have a deeper relationship with people who are interested in doing the work and better understanding some of these concepts that I talk about. It's going to be called Living Radical Acceptance, because we all need to radically accept what's going on, what we're doing in it, and how we can make our lives better in spite of what we think is happening around us. That's what we have to do, is we have to make our lives better Because when our lives are better, we're going to offer ourselves to the opportunities for other people to have better lives as well. So thank you for showing up. I always love to see you, Stephen, Melanie, wonderful. Look out for Living Radical Acceptance. And as always, check out Conquer Your Karmic Relationships, Heal Spiritual Trauma to Open Your Heart and Restore Your Soul. Again, my name is Tracee Dunblazier. You can get to me at traceedunblazier.com. Thanks again and have a magnificent weekend.